Peace, peace, beautiful people. It's the kid Jeen-Yuhs here, and I'm back with a new video. So last night I just checked out the new Kanye West documentary on Netflix called Jeen-Yuhs, and it's actually really dope. Despite all the craziness that's going on with Kanye and the news and the tabloids, the TMZ, the whole Kardashian Pete Davidson situation, and him fighting for his kids or whatever he's fighting for at the moment, it was nice to take a adventure back into what we like to call the old Kanye, right? So I really enjoyed it because it actually, the very beginning of the documentary starts in 2020 when Kanye is in the Dominican Republic. He's out there with Rhyme Fest putting some music together. The idea that they're putting together actually sounds pretty dope, even though he wasn't even using words. He was just really getting the cadence and the melody of what he was trying to say together, and I'm sure they go back and listen to it and fill in the words. So as an artist, as a creative, somebody that does that, I don't go through that process of like recording myself on camera to get ideas together, but it might be something I do in the future. But it's just dope to kind of get into the mind frame and the creative inner workings of somebody that functions at that high level. You know what I'm saying? Now, we all may have our own ideas, visions, and opinions of Kanye's musical output as of recent, but he has definitely experienced moments of genius, and they've been, they were very consistent early on, so you can never downplay that. Once you get past that, you actually get to go all the way back in the time to 1998 when Kanye first met Coodie, who is actually the documentarian that put this together. Coodie is from Chicago as well, and he basically stumbled into being Kanye's videographer over the course of the last 23 years or so. So it's kind of crazy to go back and just see how skinny Kanye was. You get a visual of him at the Jermaine Dupri party. I think it was Mace's birthday, but Jermaine Dupri put it together in Atlanta. Me as an Atlanta local, that was really dope because, So Def was so pivotal in Atlanta. Anytime you came to Atlanta during that time period, you used to see the So Def billboard with the afro and the mic, and it was right by the airport, so you had to see it. It was something you could not miss if you were moving to Atlanta, coming to Atlanta, or whatever. You know what I mean? If you were going to downtown, midtown, or going into the city in any kind of way, you had to see it. But it's really dope to see how Coodie started as well with his Channel Zero TV. You see that he interviewed people like Kobe Bryant, Snoop, Bow Wow, Da Brat, and so many more. And he was one of the only people, if not the only person, that was given the Chicago underground and just the Chicago scene, as far as hip hop is concerned, a platform at that time back in the late 90s. So these guys really accomplished a lot together, and I really like seeing it, you know what I mean? And it was interesting to me that Coodie noted that at this time, Kanye was already producing for like Mace, JD, D-Dot Angeletti on the Mad Rapper project, and he was like ghost producing at that time. So he was like making beats for people, but allowing them to take credit for the beats, you know what I mean? And they were basically coming to him because he had some heat. He was very young, and they were able to get tracks from him for like $500, you know what I mean? Which is crazy to imagine that you could ever pay Kanye $500 for a beat, right? And it was even more dope because Coodie goes on to say that although Kanye was producing for these people, even at that time, he had it set in his mind like making beats is only a means to an end. I'm gonna get super nice at this, and I'm gonna work my way into the industry, but my ultimate goal is rapping, to put out my own projects, and I'm gonna work with y'all secondarily, not primarily, you know what I mean? So that was always his vision. Now, shortly after Kanye and Coodie met, it wasn't like no big thing, but Kanye gave Coodie a call and was like, yo, I'm about to move to New York. Well, he actually ended up moving to Jersey, but during this time period is when he started getting placements with the Rocafella camp, you know what I'm saying? So then next thing you know, This Can't Be Life on the Dynasty album, which came out before the Blueprint, right? So he got the This Can't Be Life placement, but that wasn't like a major single. It was just like a cult classic record. But then he got Jay-Z's first single for the Blueprint, H to the Izzo, and that went global. That went everywhere. So it's crazy because Jay-Z actually debuted the song at the very first BET Awards. He performed it, and it was produced by Kanye, and Coodie was like, yo, I remember that beat. That's the first beat Kanye ever played for me at the studio. He got Jay-Z on it. This is wild. So from that point forward, Coodie decided to move to New York or Jersey to go be with Kanye, and he went and filmed his life ever since. So from that moment that Kanye called him like, yo, I got Jay-Z's first single on this new album called The Blueprint, my life is about to change, he said, you know what? I'm dropping everything I'm doing, because Coodie he was a comedian at the time. He was trying to get his stand-up career going, and he was still filming out in Chicago, but he was like, you know what? This is bigger than me. So he went and he followed this man for basically all of his life. So one of the first clips that you see of Kanye in the East Coast is that he's playing beats for Talib and Mos Def, you know what I mean? And they were putting together a Black Star album that we still have never seen. Very disappointing, but you know, you gotta respect the creators, right? But just to see how they were vibing at that time, man, like looking forward to the interview and how Kanye really downplayed Talib's skill set and who he is as a person, which, you know, there's a lot of debate on who Talib is as a person as well. Just to see how much synergy they had at that time. It's unfortunate that their friendship and their connection has gone so south since then. What's also interesting to me is that this is before the accident where Kanye broke his jaw and everything and almost died, but you see him rocking these, well, I ain't gonna say rock, but he has these retainers in his mouth, so he's trying to straighten his teeth or whatever, but you see him like being really self-conscious about it. So in the early stages of them filming, Kanye like, dang, let me take my retainer out to do the video, you know what I mean? Because it was creating like a slur when he spoke, which you'll see throughout the whole part one of this documentary. You get to see Kanye actually in his studio, you know what I mean, or his apartment rather, his studio apartment, recording the first take of All Falls Down. They got BET on the screen and R. Kelly's being interviewed and interrogated basically about, you know, the sex tape that came out many years ago, and he's trying to defend himself, and Kanye's like making fun of him like, did you or did you not feel me? Like, well, they say it's me, you know. And it's just kind of interesting to see that back then it was kind of a running joke, but nobody ever really spoke of it from an industry standpoint. Like people that worked in the music business never really addressed it too much. They kind of ignored it like it wasn't happening. But to see behind closed doors, that was something that they joked about. And then 20 years later, R. Kelly actually gets arrested and convicted for those actions. A lot of things from that time period did not age well, right? What's also really beautiful to me is that you get to see the cast of players that really have contributed to Kanye's career from the beginning up until now. Like you see Consequence at his house early on. You see 88 Keys at his house early on. He eventually released an album on 88 Keys called The Death of Adam, which is like super dope, especially production wise. And if you're keeping current with what's going on today, Pusha T has a new song out produced by 88 Keys with Kanye dancing around in the video called Diet Coke. So you see that those ties are still strong, still there all those years later. So although people may feel like Kanye is out of touch and doesn't have friends in his corner, it just goes to show you that you could have those people in your corner or whatever, and people make their own decisions. You know what I mean? They can't control him, but they can be a friend to him and talk to him and probably tell him what he needs to hear at times, but he's still going to go with what he wants to do. So during this whole period, like Kanye is recording the early demos of what would eventually become the College Dropout. Now, there is a mention of the College Dropout in there, which I'll get to, but he's like, he mentioned it and he's like, I'm not sure if that's going to be the title. Like, I'm still working on it. I love this little interview clip that they showed of Kanye back then, talking about how he wants to go against the grain with what's going on in the industry. He's like, yo, I'm not a gangster. That's not my life. That's not what my parents raised me to be. Yeah, I'm from the hood in Chicago. Yeah, we moved to the suburbs, whatever. But like, I'm not about to portray an image that's not authentic to me just to appease the hip hop crowd and come out fronting and putting on this persona when I'm really just a dude that from Chicago. I love making beats. I love making music. I want y'all to hear my duality. I want y'all to hear my backgrounds, hear all sides of me. Like, I'm a real person just recording. And it's kind of crazy to think that was a revolutionary stance back in like 2000, 2001, because you got to think, like, there were so many people that came after like Tupac that wanted to carry on the mantle of what he set the standard to be, or what Biggie set the standard to be, or what NWA and Ice Cube set the standard to be like really hardcore type artists. You had to like really be in your face, talk about smacking people's moms, shooting the block up and all of that. And Kanye, although he did use those types of metaphors at times, the majority of his music was really just about having a good time, stunting, and trying to squeeze in some social awareness at the same time. There's another clip of how Kanye is basically auditioning for Rocafella, because at the time they're buying beats from him, but they still not really entertaining his rapping ability. You see him going to the office with Shaka Pilgrim. For those of y'all that are not familiar with who Shaka Pilgrim is, she's been working with Rocafella since the early 2000s. She is now a huge executive in the music industry. She is one of the main players at Roc Nation. So when you hear people talk about Shaka, there's only two Shakas in the industry that you really need to care about. There's Shaka Zulu, who manages Ludacris and has gone on to do some big things, and then there's Shaka Pilgrim, right? And then you got Shaka Khan, but Shaka Khan chilling. It's kind of wild because he's literally rapping All Falls Down, which is a song that you think a woman would relate to, because he's like, she's so self-conscious, she has no idea what she's doing in college. He's probably running down her life, you know what I mean? But she's looking like confused, like, okay, this is cool, I like it, but what are we supposed to do with this in the industry? Like, we can't market that. So people end up like just barging in the office while he's rapping and playing the song for her. He goes into another office and, you know, basically does the same thing again, and he gets a little bit of a better response from the second time, but he still walks away with no results, no answers, no nothing. You know what I mean? They just kind of like, okay, yeah, cool. He ends up walking out, and there's a dude that walks past him like, oh yeah, this guy's the truth. Gives him a shout out, right? Then he says, hey man, better have my beats though, man. I need my beats. And looking at the artist that said it, I didn't even recognize who he was. So it's just kind of crazy to see back at that time period, like, people were really keeping him at bay. They were kind of talking to him a little bit crazy. That guy was like, I better have my beats. Like, who are you? Like, you never even amounted to being an artist that we knew. And you was talking to this man crazy. And now, in a short period of time after that, Kanye became the biggest thing in the game. So it's kind of funny. But I think the message in that is to be careful how you treat people, because you never know where you might end up, and you never know where they might end up, and you might actually need their help at a later time. But if you treat people like trash when you feel like you have the upper hand, it always gonna come back to bite you. Shortly after that, you see Kanye going to DJ Clue's office to try to play him some beats for what I'm guessing ended up being on the Professional album, whether it was Volume 1 or Volume 2. But the receptionist is like, hey, we've got a Cayenne here to see you. And it's like, Cayenne? Like, I could see maybe people used to call him Kane, but Cayenne? Like, dang, you didn't even make an effort. Oh man, and Kanye goes in, he's like, yo, what kind of beats you want, bro? And he just like, yo, I just need something hard, you know, I just need something hard, you know what I mean? Because at that time, that's what it was all about. He couldn't even give him a description of what he was actually looking for. Once again, it's interesting to see Just Blaze end up walking into the studio, and Kanye's like, yo, that's Just Blaze, man. That's like my best friend / worst enemy. And I guess that kind of signifies what their relationship has been throughout their entire time in the industry. They've always been associated with a lot of the same acts. They do have similar styles, although they have different approaches to how they create it. And it's kind of like they've always had this camaraderie, but competition, rivalry at the same time, because at that time it's kind of easy to confuse a Just Blaze beat and a Kanye beat. If you're not really somebody that like pays attention to how the drums hit and stuff like that, you could easily think one or the other made it. And it's like, yo, every time I come up with a sound, this dude is right behind me, but y'all are keeping up with each other. So it's kind of like they pushed each other to greatness, but being that they were producing for a lot of the same artists, they ended up having to use a lot of the same contextual resources, because once they introduced a certain sound, that became the sound of Rocafella. And if you didn't fit into that mold, your beats was getting pushed to the side. So there's no footage of Bink, or at least not yet. So I'm sure he's got some feelings about that as well. But yeah, just to see how Kanye addressed Just Blaze in the more recent Drink Champs interview, and was like, he been biting my style, or he been running with my style forever, you know. It's just kind of like, dang, once again, a relationship gone bad. In the midst of all of this, we start seeing a little bit of traction for Kanye. There's this guy named 3H who's been in the music business for a very long time. He was at Capitol at the time, and he really was interested in signing Kanye. And no matter how hard he pushed for it, the executives at the label didn't want nothing to do with him. They were like, this whole producer rapper angle that he's going for, we don't get it. You know what I mean? Because to that point, there had never really been a producer rapper that was like up front and center, like, I made these beats, I wrote these raps, this is what I'm about. It was kind of like MCs that DJ'd in the background or produced their records. Like Redman produced his own stuff, Eric Sermon produced his own stuff, D Nice produced for himself, JD, J Dilla, you know, of course, but it wasn't something that was frequently spoken about. Pete Rock, you know what I mean? But Kanye was like, nah, this is a part of who I am. You know, of course, Q-Tip, I can't forget him either. But this is who I am. This is what I'm about. Y'all know me first from beats, but I rhyme, and he felt like he was better at rapping than making beats. So although Capitol did not want him, there was this guy named Ali from Raucous Records, which had Talib and Mos Def at the time. They had artists like Pharoah Monch, High Tech, and all of that little crew that was like really bubbling in the early 2000s. That whole Lyricist Lounge situation, that was a Raucous collaboration. Like, if you were in the know of music in the early 2000s, like, all of these things are pretty nostalgic and like bring back memories, man. But Ali was like, yo, you should come over here, because you like a mix between like Rocafella and Raucous, but you more Raucous with your whole situation, because you're not super blinged out, and you have a very grounded sense of style when it comes to your music. So you would be a perfect fit over here. You're more conscious. Ultimately, that deal did not come to fruition either. So he's out there auditioning and trying to get his relationships up. He's got multiple labels that are, you know, somewhat giving him an opportunity, but they just not really seeing the vision completely. And it just goes to show how hard he was really working at this time. There's a clip where Kanye talks about how he was in the studio producing for Lil' Kim for a session, and it was all good. He got time to leave, and like he got a call that Shine wanted him to pull up to play some beats at a studio that was like 20 blocks away. He was like, I didn't have no car. I didn't have enough money to get in a cab, so I grabbed my beat tapes and I literally just ran to the studio. I'm sure he didn't just run all in one whop to get there, but like, he had to make it happen. Like, yo, I can't get there through the cab. I don't got a whip, so I'm just going to run to get there as fast as I can. If I got to take a break in between, I'll take a break, and I'm going to start running again. You know what I mean? But that just shows how much work ethic he had. You know what I mean? I think today some of that does get convoluted in the conversation when it comes to trying to make it as an artist, as a producer, as an actor, as a filmmaker, or whatever it is that you want to do, especially on a creative level, because in that space, there's no guarantees. The opportunities come few and far between, and when they come, you kind of got to make sure that you can show up. And if you're facing adversity, nobody really wants to hear about it. Shortly after that, you see Talib rocking a show in New York. He's headlining, and he allows Kanye to come out on stage and rap for the crowd. Now, That may seem insignificant now, but at that time it meant the world to somebody like Kanye, because nobody was really giving him an opportunity. He wasn't booking no shows on his own, so he was able to piggyback off the relationship he had with Talib and Mos Def to get a little bit of stage time in front of a nice sized crowd. There was at least probably 500 to 1,000 people in that room that night that was able to get introduced to him, and he could spit his rhymes, and he got a pretty good reaction. But it's not like he was the primary draw for anything that was going on at that time. Then you see this dope cypher backstage where Kanye and Mos Def are going and rapping the lyrics that ended up on 2 words, and they're going back and forth, and it's like crazy because it's like right after Mos Def stops rapping, Kanye cuts in with his verse, and I don't know if Mos Def ever actually heard that verse up until that point. So you could see like the amazement on his face, like, dog, you really rapping. Like, yeah, I thought you made the beat and this is something that we worked on, but it's actually hard. And you know, stuff like that is what really gives people the confidence and the fuel to keep going, keep pursuing, and keep growing. You know what I mean? Because a lot of people can get discouraged along the way. This is not an easy road. Like I walk through this road daily as a music creator, as somebody that's trying to do this independently, and it's not easy. And although I do make videos, not to make this about me, but although I do make videos and talk about the music business and how to monetize your music and how to, you know, work towards getting to a full-time space, there's so many millions of people that quit before they ever reach that. And it's really cool to see a Wood Harris cameo back there because he got to witness it. So I recently watched a Wood Harris interview, and he talked about his relationship with like Tupac and being around for the early Kanye days and being around Dame Dash during the Paid in Full filming and all of that stuff. So Wood Harris, he's a hip hop head. He's played in a lot of hip hop based films, and he is like an encyclopedia of music information as well. So if y'all have never actually watched a Wood Harris interview, I suggest you do so because he knows a lot and he's witnessed a lot. Next thing you see is Kanye going back home to Chicago. He got booked at WGCI's radio conference, which basically was bringing in executives from the music business and producers and artists to come in and talk to people on the local Chicago scene, right? So he said that he had been sneaking into this event years prior. He had never been able to afford a ticket, but now he was finally booked to speak at it, and they botched his name. He's like, yo, how y'all just gonna put me down as Kanye, not Kanye West? Like, I'm a new artist, dog. Like, y'all can't just be, I'm a new artist, new producer. You gotta use my full name. How you just gonna put Kanye on there? And he said when he spoke to somebody from the station, they was like, well, everybody here just call you Kanye. He was like, well, ain't that just some hometown stuff? Well, we know you as Kanye, so we gonna put you, so that's what we gonna call you. He was like, shoot, y'all might as well just put Yate in. And it's really cool to just see the seed planted at that point. You get to see him hanging out with these group of guys that he says he would not be doing what he was doing if not for them, right? So you get introduced to this guy named Doug Infinite. Now, Doug Infinite is credited as one of the producers who helped Kanye even learn how to make beats. The other is No ID. Right? So you see Kanye, he goes up to the table, gives him a pound, and he's like, yo, man, like, Doug Infinite taught me how to make beats. He showed me how to work the machine. I was just like 13, 14, annoying him and No ID, and I owe a lot to y'all, man. And he was like, yo, ain't nobody ever really got on. Y'all put me around people, you know what I'm saying? And although nobody blew up, it was a bunch of, you know, next to blow type people, and even though they didn't blow, it's all good because it's still love, right? Well, the same day that Kanye saw this man, showed him love, dapped him up and everything, they finished the event, go about their business. Doug Infinite was on the radio talking down on Kanye about a XXL article in which he felt like he got snubbed out of his story. So Kanye pulls up on him, and he's like, dog, I told the magazine you and No ID taught me how to make beats. Now, they may have edited your name out, but that ain't something to be mad about with me. And I think that's a great thing to point out because if the industry or the journalist that wrote the article does not know who Doug Infinite is, but they do know who No ID is, because No ID produced for Common, and they decide to say, well, I'm going to put No ID down and I'm going to take this guy out. That's not a reflection of what Kanye said. It's just that the journalist didn't feel it was worth noting. Now, that's its own thing, you know what I mean? But you could easily call somebody and be like, hey, man, what happened? But he went straight to the radio after seeing this dude earlier in the day and showed nothing but love. So it just goes to show how people was really treating him back in those early 2000s, man. There was a running theme going on in the documentary of like those moments of when nobody really knows you, everybody kind of has you at their arm's length. They can always reach you, always contact you, always have access to what you bring to the table. They love you. But soon as you start getting a little shine and start doing things for yourself and become more self-sufficient and maybe surpass them in their journey, that's when the hate kicks in. That's when people start feeling some type of way out of nowhere. After this confrontation, Kanye takes a trip to his mother's house, and it was really dope to see Miss Donda West in the video because, you know, that was his heart. That was his best friend, and you could see it just oozing through the camera at that time, man. Like, she supported him like no other. She listened to all his music, listened to all his raps, his beats. She knew his old raps from when he was in school. They were sitting there just, she's like, I always told you need to put this one out. You know, and she quoted it bar for bar, you know, although she kind of stumbled on a couple parts. It was just beautiful to see it, man. You know, I do feel for him, being that he's had to live without her for over 10 years now, right? And it was even nicer to see her first reaction to seeing his chain. He had got a new gold chain with like an angel on it. And she was like, ooh, I love this. Now, if you know the Kanye story, the angels that he has on ended up being the angels that are in the Good Music logo. And she was like, I really like this. I was mad that you didn't buy the house and you know, always spending money on jewelry, but this one is beautiful, so it's worth it. There will be other houses. Another clip I really want to point out about the documentary is where they go back to the studio and you see Rhymefest and Kanye working on Jesus Walks. Now, if you've been following the Kanye story over years, Rhymefest is an artist that Kanye was producing for way back in the days out in Chicago. Rhymefest is credited as the writer or co-writer of the song Jesus Walks, and he contributed to other records at that time that Kanye was putting together. But to see him actually recording, we've never actually seen that on tape. So there was a little bit of controversy. You know, they when Rhymefest first hit the scene after Kanye blew up, and I mean the scene as in he got his deal and was able to put an album out, Rhymefest came out and told people, I wrote Jesus Walks, and nobody really believed it. You know what I mean? Because they looked at it like, you're less than Kanye. He put you on, so how could you be writing his music? Because people in the public don't understand how the process works. So to see it and know what that song became and how important it was for Kanye's career, it's just really a full circle moment that I appreciated a lot. It's interesting to see how Kanye was in the studio with Scarface and he wanted him to actually record the hook for Jesus Walks, and Face wasn't really interested in doing it. He was like, it's cool, but that ain't me. And Kanye played him Family Business, which also ended up on the College Dropout, and Face really liked Family Business, but he's like, he was supposed to lay a verse down for it, and he ends up walking out the studio, I should say, and never coming back. But Kanye actually rapped the first verse of Family Business for Scarface, and he was like, incredible. And once again, just like that cypher with Mos Def, you see Kanye is like beaming with joy. He's like, yo, I just rapped my verse for Scarface, and he said, incredible. Gave him that extra gas, that extra fire to keep going, because he was getting faced with so much rejection. You know what I mean? Although he was finding success with his beats, what he really wanted was for people to appreciate his rapping ability. So shortly after that session, they show Kanye and, you know, Coodie and their crew at the time, they're walking down the street in New York, and they happen to pass the Chicago Broadway like flyer or promotion by the theater, and they do a cut to where Dame calls Ye to let him know, like, hey bro, we're finally ready to do the deal. So then they show Kanye like beaming with joy again, like, oh man, we finally about to do this deal. He goes to the meeting. They give him the paperwork. He signs the deal with Rocafella, and it's finally cemented. All the hard work up until that point had finally paid off. He finally got down with the crew that he wanted to be with the whole time anyway. Because when you see him talking to like 3H at Capitol, you see him talking to Ali from Raucus, he's more so listening to them talk. But when you see him at Rocafella, you see him kind of like really making a strong concerted effort to like be known and be noticed and be heard, because that's where he wanted to be accepted at more than anything. That was like the ultimate confirmation for him. And the grand finale of the show, Jay-Z, the Dynasty Tour, stopping in Chicago, right? And while he's up there rapping, Dame is on the stage. Everybody's having a great time. The crowd's going crazy. He's like, yo, I can't end the show without bringing the team out. And then he finally says, yo, Kanye, you got something you want to say? Kanye grabs the mic. I'm the newest member of the Rocafella team, and I'ma bring this nigga Dame mad more cream. And then Dame comes up and puts the rock chain on him, and it's like official, right? In his hometown, he gets to let people know, Chi-Town, we on. I'm about to go crazy. I'm about to put us on the map the way it's supposed to have been done. And then it's over. The last thing that you do see at the end of part 1 is the foreshadowing of the actual car accident that he got in before Through the Wire was made and all of that stuff. So part 2 will be out. I think it comes out on either February 22nd or 23rd. So stay tuned for that. I may do a review or synopsis of that as well. It's a 3-part series. So now that I've done this, I might as well do all 3, right? So make sure y'all stay tuned. If you want to check it out, go on Netflix. If you ain't paid for your Netflix, make it happen, or hit one of your homies up and get the password. It's really dope. I know I walked away from it feeling rejuvenated and ready to go back into the music world. You know what I mean? Although I do this every day, it did give me motivation to like keep going hard and seeing to it that my goals get achieved, and that I know that there's, even though I do this full time now, there is more to accomplish, more to see, and more to enjoy out of the situation. So let me know what y'all think in a comment below. Make sure you like and share this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, man. We're trying to get to that 1K, and I'm gonna keep putting out this content for y'all, man. Much love and respect. Peace.